This is one of a collection of videos in which I attempt to describe the individual novels in a series called Tales of MI7, which I, James Ward, wrote over the course of a decade and which I completed roughly 3 years ago. This one concerns the fifth. I produced the social Magus in 2014 and early 2015, and its theme is the contemporary disillusion with Westminster politicians and the very possibility of a different kind of society. 2015 was the year of the UK general election, and the social Magus is a fictionalised run-up to that, broaching the issues raised by Peter O'Born's The Triumph of the Political Class, which appears explicitly in the social Magus's predecessor, the Eastern Ukraine question. O'Born argued that MPs and aspiring MPs are now a professional caste who resemble each other far more than they resemble those they allegedly represent. His book came out in 2008. By 2015, many of its claims had become part of mainstream discourse. In addition, there was a sense, as there often is nowadays, that conventional politics had little appeal to the young. In retrospect, all of that probably contributed to the horror of social media-driven populism, which of course was never what O'Born was calling for. Obviously, any novel has to be vastly more than its themes, and The Social Magus is a love story. It's both about romantic love and the love between siblings, but of course, it's also an action thriller. How much of one it is and how much of the other may be a matter of opinion. The protagonist, MI7's John Mordred, is assigned to investigate a new political party called Radical Alternative, fronted by two voguish young men and which has supposedly attracted the interest of much of the country's youth. MI7 suspects it may be accepting overseas donations, and although it hasn't yet fielded any potential MPs, it likely will, and the authorities need to be prepared to forestall a scandal. John Mordred is ideally placed for this particular assignment because one of his sisters, a serious-minded prize-winning novelist 1 year younger than him, called Julia, is in a relationship with the party leader. Mordred doesn't think she'll be pleased to have him around, but in fact she's delighted. Somehow she's found out what he does for a living, and she needs his help, because someone's trying hard to assassinate that leader. This is the novel in which I first reimagined London as a kind of village with Mordred and his colleagues at the centre. In order for that to work, I needed a small number of recurring key locations across the novels. Thames House, MI7's headquarters, functions as its ambiguous epicentre. It contains enemies as well as friends, but others include Mansion House, Westminster Palace, Tower Bridge, the Shard, and the SIS building. By village, I don't mean a modified Midsummer, although it has that aspect. I was also thinking of the village in the 1960s ITC TV series, The Prisoner. Mordred and his colleagues, although at home in London, also find it strange and threatening, and it really is so. The conditions of their employment contribute to that. They're in a world of shifting appearances and hidden menaces where truth is hard to come by. There's also a sense in which Mordred is literally trapped in his role, something which is brought home to him forcefully in a much later novel, Death in a Half-Foreign Country. The biggest question the social Magus raises is to what extent is a radical alternative really possible? The British theorist Mark Fisher famously claimed that we can no longer imagine anything beyond the present system. Will Radical Alternative, the party, field any MPs? If it does, it's lashed to the establishment. If it doesn't, well, what happens if it doesn't? No one knows. And that may be the point. Fisher isn't referenced by name in this novel, but the depressing possibility that we're stuck with the status quo is one you'd probably have recognised. Anyway, that's the social Magus. Romance, radical politics, spycraft, and an equivocal, slightly sinister version of London. A truly irresistible combination.